Over the last weekend, Tristana Reroll became more and more popular, and for good reasons. This comp is extremely easy to play and actually also very powerful. And on top of that, 2 players per lobby can play this comp without killing each other and making 7th, 8th. So actually this is why this comp is being more popular, but I believe that there are some people, or at least I've seen some, making some mistakes and just making them lose the game while they have like a free game in their hands. So in this video I'm going to focus on 2 things. First of all, I'm going to present the comp, just in case that you don't know about this comp or maybe you haven't heard about it. And for those who already know it, I'll focus on the second thing, which is the mistakes. So if you already know how to play this comp, you can directly jump into this part, because I'm going to explain the most common mistakes I see and how I saw some people having an exceptional start and just ending up 8th. So without further delays, let's start with the full comp. Okay, so you have 2 versions of this comp, all right? The Yordle version and the Gunner version. So this is the Yordle version, where you want to play, obviously around Tristana, Poppy, Maokai, you just add 2 more Yordles with Hammerninger, and then that way Poppy can also be a 4-star unit. And if that's the case, if you want to play this comp, you definitely want to stuff her with defensive items, so she's not naked, basically. I'm not really into that. For the Apex turret, one thing that's extremely powerful for this comp is to have self-repair. If you have 3 self-repair, the Apex turret takes only 2 seconds to get back alive, and basically that's almost infinite meal shield, and that's everything you want in this comp, alright? The other version is 4 gunners. Basically, instead of having 2 useless Yordles, you have 2 useless gunners, but these gunners at least provide more benefits, more power to Tristana. The only reason why you want to go with 4 gunners is either you can't find any more Yordles because you're level 8 or level 9 and your shops are empty of Kled or Teemo. But also, you want to focus on this version if your Poppy doesn't have any defensive items. Because if she doesn't have any defensive items, it's not really worth it to add, to invest units to make her stronger, right? So that's more or less the reason why. These 2 comps are very powerful. The hardest part, obviously, is to find Senna and Hammerninger level 8. But sometimes you're strong enough to push level 9 and to fight these units. So before we get to the early game, the augments, the transitions, and the legends, I just wanted to tell you, like, I have made a guide, a PowerPoint with the 5 most played comp this week. And actually, I'm going to share it to you for free. I put the link in the description. Like I told you, everything's free. You can have access to that. And I'm going to try to maintain this every week. So I think this will be helpful to you guys if you're always trying to catch up to the meta. This will help you to focus on the right comp and climb fast. With that being said, let's jump into the early game. The early game is very easy. You just want to have Maokai, Poppy, Tristana, Viego, and once you're level 5, you add Jinx. We'll explain a bit better how to slow roll, but basically this is your early game comp, and you want to stay like this until you find Maokai 3, Poppy 3, Tristana 3, Viego 3 is not mandatory, but honestly, if you find it, it will help you tremendously because it's an excellent unit. You can get rid of very late game if you don't invest in Viego with items and things like this. But for the early mid game, it will help you to stabilize your board very strongly. That's why people like to 3-star Viego. And once you find all of that, obviously you put Jinx, but the most priority is to push level 6. That way you have Yordle, and that way you have Tristana 4. About the items in the early game, make sure you have always 1 tank item for 1 item for Tristana. If you build only Tristana items, fine, she will deal damage, but you won't have anything to buy her enough time. So that's why it's really important to have the 1-to-1 ratio. And actually, that's one of the mistakes. I'm going to explain a bit further later, but that's one of the mistakes where people prioritize too much items for Tristana, and then after they wonder why Tristana doesn't have the time to deal damage. Well, you have no frontline. That's the reason why. So for those who are not familiar with rerolling comps in the early game with the slow roll strategy, I'm going to explain very briefly how to play. During stage 2, you want to do 2 things. First of all, you want to lose every single fight. You need to lose them, okay? Because that way you have priority on the carousel, so you have more chance to find the units or the items that you want. Here it's more like the items because you don't really care about the units. You really want to have the good items to make the 1-to-1 ratio, like I said earlier. You also want to lose because you want to have the loss streak interest, okay, that can give up to 3 gold per turn, so you can maximize your econ. You also make sure you don't want to buy any kind of XP. You don't want to spend any money into XP. That way you can reach your interest threshold even faster. And at the end of the stage, usually you're level 4 with 40, 50 gold, and that's exactly what you want to look for. Because at stage 3-1, here at this stage, what you really want to do is to roll down to 30 gold. You're level 4, at this stage you're level 4, okay? And you want to go down to 30 gold. I'm not really agile with my mouse, but whatever, you understand, right? And that way you can use the level 4 shops, which give a lot of chances to find a 1-cost unit. And then you also don't go too deep into your econ. That way you can get back to 50 gold in 2 rounds. That's really important, because here you will naturally level up level 5. Starting from here, you can try to win some fights, but most of the time it will depend on your lobby. If your lobby is weak, you will win fights, but if everyone is super strong, you will probably keep losing the fights. Normally, after rolling down to 30 gold, you should have found at least a couple of 2 stars, and maybe if you're really lucky, you found a 3-star unit. This should help you to win some fights around maybe here, here, and here, okay? And if you're really lucky, you win all of them. That's even better, so you can save a lot of health. Once you reach this phase, right? And if you're entering this stage, you have to make sure that you roll down to 0 gold if it's necessary, because you absolutely need to find Maokai 3, Poppy 3, Tristana 3, and Viego 3 if you find it, obviously, because that way you can have Tristana 4 later. If you don't have this board with only 3 stars and 1 4-star unit at stage 4, you will lose. You will finish 8th because you will lose too much health and you will die without being able to fight. So this is the moment when you have to roll down. And that's really important, okay? So now let's talk about the items. So here in this chart, I try to categorize different tiers of items. So to give you an idea, this is S tier, this is A tier, this is B tier, this is garbage tier, okay? So means like you don't play that. So first of all, Last Whisper, one of the most important items on Tristana. Since you don't play Freljord and there's a lot of tanks, having a Last Whisper allows Tristana to be able to cut through the tanks. If you don't have Last Whisper, you might lose fights just because you don't even kill the tanks. That's pretty much it. So it's very important. Giant Slayer, another godlike item, because right now there's a lot of reroll comps, there are a lot of units going above the threshold of the Giant Slayer, so it allows Tristana to multiply all the damage by 25%, and that's very, very good. Last one, a lot of people sleep on this item, but it's actually very powerful. Remember that Tristana is a 4-star unit. She has tons of base AD, so the fact that you multiply this base AD by 66% is an incredible increase of damage. The only downside of Deathblade is that if you don't play TF, it's hard to have a lot of swords, and if you do this, if you do the Deathblade, maybe it's harder next to it to find a Gunblade, to find a Giant Slayer, or to create Ziggs, okay? So that's the only downside of Deathblade, but definitely don't sleep on this item. Then on the A tier, it means that these items are extremely powerful, but try to get something better if you can. Like, you can have 1 or 2 A tier items, but try at least to have Last Whisper, for instance. Gunblade, extremely powerful. It allows Tristana to heal the tank and buy a lot of time. That way your tank don't die and you just win the fight that way. Runan, it's even better if you have Deathblade, because like I said, she has a tons of base AD. The bolt will also deal a good amount of damage over time, right? And finally, another one I think is kind of slept on is Guardbreaker. It's kind of similar to Giant Slayer. It's almost impossible for Guardbreaker to not give the bonus damage. It's just that it gives a bit less useful stats, while here it's actually very, very powerful with 30% attack damage. Okay, this is my hot take. Rapid Fire Cannon, Ginzu are both kinda weak. Honestly, you can have much, much better than that. Another thing I want to say, Tristana has a lot of attack speed thanks to her ability. So you don't really need to have more attack speed on her. Instead, you want to use and value this attack speed with more damage, right? This is how you create better value. And then finally, IE is kind of useless because her spell is attacking faster, so she can already crit. Her big AoE when she's 4 stars doesn't deal that much damage. Look at it, it's only 135 damage. This is not that much. Alright, let's talk about the legends. There's one legend you kind of want to have if you want to force Tristana, is Lee Sin, because this thing here is godlike. If you have this, it allows you to have so many free shops at stage 2. So when you're level 3, level 4, so you have increased chance to find 1 cost, and the rest is trash. Don't even try. Then, in my opinion, the second best legend to play this comp is Vladimir. The reason is simple. When you start the game, you will lose all the fights, like I said earlier, right? So because of that, Transfusion will make your team much stronger in the mid-late game, and you will spike even harder. Then after you have battle ready, your team already has tons of HP, tons of defensive stats, tons of offensive stats, so you just multiply all of that by this percentage, and that's why that's very valuable. The last thing I don't really like is partial assassin, or final assassin. I'm not sure this is best. I think you should reroll this to get something better. And speaking of augments, let's go into the augments. So on the silver side, except for the legend augments I showed, here I'm really showing all the other augments you can find next to the legends, okay, that you have to consider. Unified resistance, one of the best augments right now. I think it will be nerfed soon because like it can almost fit any comp. There's no downside of it. Very good. Healing orbs. If you have healing orbs, you don't need to build Gunblade anymore on Tristana. You can build for another offensive items. And then finally, red buff. It's actually a good one. Honestly, if you have nothing else, it's okay because you will attack a lot. It will help the enemy. I mean, it will help your team to prevent the enemy from healing. That could be a big issue for the enemy because you have a lot of DPS. So honestly, this is really good. Consider it if you don't have a Sunfire Cape or a Morello. On the gold side, long distance pals, obviously Maokai 3 and Tristana 4, they will love to be together, right? Secondly, dueling gunners. Obviously, you play gunner. This is one of the best augments for any gunner comp, and Tristana is not an exception. And finally, unstable Yordle delivery allows you to have Yordles every turn, so it just helps you to find Tristana 3 and Poppy 3 very easily. On the prismatic side, golden ticket, think fast, both insanely good for reroll comps anyway. You want these two, it will just help you to have your perfect comps easily. And finally, roll the dice. It's actually a very good one because when you have Jawigalah 3, you usually don't have the stuff or items to give to him, but if you give that to him, he will do great job with it, okay? So this is another good augment to consider. So I'm going to speak a bit of some mistake I've seen. For instance, in this game, I was streaming and there was someone who got on the roll. It's not written here, but basically on the roll, that's the best augment you can have to play this comp with Lee Sin, the Lee Sin legend, right? And he had many more Tristana, Poppy, Maokai than me at stage 2, at stage 3. And at the end, he just lost stage 8, level 6 with a board that's kind of ridiculous compared to me, where I found all the units later, but I didn't make the mistakes and I didn't manage to finish third, even though I was contested and I took some time to find my units. So the first mistake that he did, and you should avoid it 1% of the time, is not applying the slow roll strategy. He didn't manage, and it's partially because of me, but he didn't manage to lose all the fight. He made loss, win, loss, win. And because of that, he had very bad econ. I think he was level 4 here with 20 gold. And while I was here with 40 gold, that's double his amount of gold, right? And then after here, for some reason, he panicked. He panicked because he saw he was contested. I was contesting him. And for some unknown reason, he panicked and decided to roll down to 0 gold to try to find all the 4 costs, the 3 costs that and Tristana goes 4 costs, of course. And because of that, he didn't manage to get enough gold to find his Maokai. As you can see here, he doesn't have his Maokai 3, and that's a shame because Maokai is the one having all the defensive items. Instead, if he could have known, he should have put everything on Poppy, just saying. But anyway, he couldn't find Maokai 3. He was stuck level 6 forever because he just killed his economy. So the first mistake, and that's the most important one, is not being able to manage your economy properly and use a good loss streak strategy. Then the second mistake I would say is to pick the other Lee Sin augments. Let me show you. The other augments, Trade Sector, Shopping Spree, Training Reward, and Money, all of them are garbage to play reward comps, okay? Only Honor Roll is good. Trade Sector is not a reward augment. Same for shopping spree. These augments are good to play win streak because it allows you to find a lot of 2-star units and push fast, so you have better quality free shops, right? It's better to have trade sector with free shops when you're level 8 than when you're level 5, because that way you have more chance to find the 5 cost units and the 4 cost units and all of that. So that's why trade sector is not for rework comps. Shopping spree is not for rework comps. And finally, the third mistake is prioritizing RFC or Ginzu on Tristana. These items are not that great on her. You can have much better than that, and instead of having more attack speed, while Tristana already has a good amount of attack speed thanks to her spell, you should focus more on something that brings more damage or utility. By more damage, I talk about Last Whisper, Giant Slayer, Deathblade. Utility, I talk about Gunblade, and that's pretty much it. You don't have any other utility items for Tristana. Alright, I hope with this video you managed to understand why sometimes your Tristana games are just not great at all. This comp can be played by 2 players in the same time in the same lobby, but you have to make sure like you stay cool-headed and you understand that you have a strategy and you stick to it, because this strategy is going to make you win over the other if you manage to execute it properly. On the other hand, I wanted to say also that I shared yesterday a video that made me win around 521 LP this weekend, and I'm sharing everything here, so make sure to watch it and do not miss it. Until then, see you at the top of the ladder.